That's how we own it.
What's up, family? It's your girl, Tamika D, Mallory.
And it's your boy, Mysonne, the General.
And we are your host of Street Politicians, the place where the streets and politics meet. What's going on, Mr. Lennon? Our society.
Oh, man. Lord have mercy, Jesus.
And I tell you, it's a lot happening. But I spent time today with little 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds. And I was like, this is where I need to be. Like, I think that this is my next life. I need to be with them because first of all, they're hilarious. And they're, they like still in their terrible twos, but they're so sweet. They said such nice things to me. The girls were like, "You're pretty." And then the boys were like, "Well, tell me what you do." And they were very inquisitive. And it was just a great space. And I was actually with our family at GBNY, which is an athletic store in Queens. They sell sneakers and they always get the top, whatever, the freshest, flyest, whoever's sneakers come out. I don't know much about that, but they get them and a lot of celebrities, including Jim Jones, who was there today with me at this event. They're like a real exclusive place that a lot of celebrities go to, and therefore they know they have a big responsibility. And today, G, the owner, was talking about how much, no matter where he goes or what he does, he wants to give things away. So they teamed up with Adidas and gave away $100,000 worth of sneakers to families and kids today in a school in Harlem, PS 179. Super cool. Our guy, big brother, Mr. Footwork, brought me into the space and had me to be there. And I was just like, these kids, I have to be with the kids because the adults is driving me crazy.
Yeah, it's different. Adulting is different. But, we got to protect the kids too, man. Because it's crazy out here.
Things going on. Speaking of crazy things going on with kids, in Florida, in Miami, Florida is literally off the chain. It's like,
oh yeah, they got DeSantis out there, man. Of course, it's crazy.
But it's always been crazy, and it's just crazier. They had a daycare center, and a bunch of white kids in the daycare center there with other children as well, Black kids, diverse group of people. The 2-year-olds for Black History Month, the teachers decided to paint their faces Blackface. And then they took the photos they did a photo shoot of the little 2-year-old white kids with the blackface and put it on their social media accounts. And of course, the Black folks lost it. I'm telling you, I was on the internet scrolling yesterday, and I saw a story about daycare and Black people pulling their kids out. And you know what I did? Scrolled on past it as fast as I could because I just didn't even know. I was thinking it was going to be something, something else. And I just couldn't deal with it. It's just too much. I don't even understand. I'm thinking maybe they didn't know they were doing something wrong.
I don't know how you don't know in this era, in this day and age, that blackface, that Black people don't want it. We don't want it. It ain't no sign of, celebrate. It's not okay. No Black person wants you in blackface. We don't want.
You can't say that. Some Black people might say it.
No. I don't know. Nobody wants it. We don't want it. Don't want it. It ain't gonna work for you, man. Y'all don't want to teach, Black history, but you want to paint Black faces.
It's so crazy. But that's why I said
the dumbest shit ever.
I have to start changing my mindset because if I sit with everything that's going on, that's just one boom, 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 this, that, over here, over there, I lose my mind. And I'm not trying to lose my mind. And people really do lose their minds. Like, this is a thing. Like, as we start to get older, Alzheimer's and all these things start to become a problem, as they call it, the Alzheimer's in our community, the Alzheimer's and the dementia and all that stuff. You cannot be out here stressing yourself out every day with what's going on in this world. And I'm convinced that they just have stuff bang, 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 bang all day long so that you're so all over the place that you can't even focus on one particular thing. So therefore, I have to believe that maybe they just I don't know. Maybe they didn't know. Maybe they thought they were honoring or teaching the white kids what it feels like to be Black. And I don't think it's right. Of course, I'm being sort of sarcastic and even facetious, if you will. But I'm still just trying to see where the ribbon in the sky is, that perhaps, because if you
don't want it, but we don't want it though.
But if you took pictures of it and you posted it, you couldn't have thought it was wrong, right?
We don't want it. We don't want it. Like, that's the bottom line. Like, and it's been proven, because every time somebody does it, they get the same reaction. So if you're doing this as a teacher, you know, and you're a grown person in 2023, then you're not reading the room. You're not paying attention to anything that's going on. You don't get it. You know what I'm saying? And ignorance is not an excuse for what it is. At this point, you're supposed to know. You know, and that's just pretty much that.
It's weirdo vibes, like total weirdo. And it's like you said, they don't want us to learn our history. And it seems that there's such a fascination still, though, with us. Like they want us casted out of society, basically. They don't want you to learn about yourself. They want to kill you. They don't want anybody to fight or stand up for you. They don't want you to stand up for yourself. They don't want to treat your kids right. They want to lock you up. They want to do all this. And yet, and still, they won't leave us alone. Like, why are you painting these children? You should never do that, because you don't want them to be Black. You don't even really want them to have an experience or understanding of what it is that we as Black people are beyond enslavement and oppression. Like, we have so many other great things. And for some reason, y'all just won't leave us alone. It's very weird to me. Very, very,
extremely
very
weird. Extremely weird.
Speaking of Florida and education, though, I'm really proud of something that we started working on recently. We've talked on the show a few times about the ban on the African American Studies class, the AP course in Florida, where they put out a curriculum that I found to be strong. Sure, it has holes. We talked about some of the things that I wish it had more titles addressing Black men. You know, we talked about some of the things, but what they teach now is damn near nothing. So the curriculum that has been built that teaches about prior to enslavement, all the way through the transatlantic slave trade, and talks about the reparations movement, the movement for justice, and the Black Lives Matter movement. I mean, it is extensive in terms of all the things that the new curriculum was proposing. Then it was banned, of course, by the I think it was the board, the curriculum board, or the education. It wasn't the board of education, though, but there's a department that looks at curriculum. They were the first ones to strike it and say that the information it went too far, and they didn't feel that it was necessary curriculum, and that much of the information was not appropriate for these high school students. And of course, Governor DeSantis used that. He was like, yep, they're with me. I want to thank them for seeing the issues. He talked about the Stay Woke movement. There's actual legislation in Florida to ban Stay Woke, and that whole concept of teachers and workplaces and others focusing on the woke movement, if you will. In fact, Governor DeSantis said that Florida is the place that woke comes to die. Like, he said that. So those are his words. So there's a real attack. And, he was very excited and making sure that as governor, he doubled down on banning the curriculum. So it went back to the committee that helped to design it, and they watered it down. And now it's like, it's cool. It's still better than it was, but it doesn't have the elements in it, especially when you're trying to teach Black kids, African kids, and teach other communities about our struggles, about, who we are and how we come into relationship with this country. So we decided, because when I was posting about it and talking about it, people were like, well, I would love to learn that stuff. I would love to take those classes. Do you know where we can get the information? Is this curriculum somewhere that we can download it? And a lot of people were asking. So people asked, and we listened. We heard that. We understand the necessity to make sure this information gets out there, and that one of the ways we combat, in addition to protest and all of that, but one of the ways that we have to fight back against the intention to whitewash history is by providing it and teaching it ourselves. And so Until Freedom has announced, and this week, tomorrow actually will be the first day that folks will get an opportunity to participate in a 6-week course where we're going to actually be having instructors and professors to come in and teach much of the material that was in the AP course, and also just material that even goes beyond that. So dope. What is it called?
It's called You Gonna Learn Today.
Not today. You're gonna learn today.
You're gonna learn today.
From Until Freedom's Academy. And through our academy, just for folks who may not know, it is an area within Until Freedom, our organization, where we teach people about a lot of things. We teach them about protests and, help train folks. When we were in Louisville, Kentucky, we trained hundreds of people to get ready for a protest and civil disobedience. We really try to focus on helping people to educating them on protest movements and the strategies, and also the safety measures that have to be taken into account, and then what happens after a protest. And so our academy is fully functional. We do a lot of work with it, but this is a new area where we're going to be specifically focusing on African and African-American history. 6 classes. You can sign up where you would pay $249 for all 6 classes, or you can get individual classes for $65, and the instructors are amazing. So
yes, that's what I'm looking for. I'm gonna learn today.
On a much more painful and just a sad, terrible, every time it happens, it's more terrible than the last time. And we just are living in a place, in a society, in a time where anything can happen at any moment. And you say, why me when the bad things happen? But the question then becomes, why not you? Because if it can happen to somebody else, it can certainly happen to you. And the tragic shooting that happened at Michigan State, when we're talking about education, people in the classroom trying to get their education, students were killed by a Black man, by the way. I think he was 43 years old, went into the school. They still have not been able to find any connection between him and Michigan State. He went into this school, shot at least 8 people, or at least they say that 8 people were injured in this shooting. So that could be that somebody fell down the stairs or broke their leg or whatever. So we haven't heard all the details of the injuries to each individual person. However, to see that, when the doctors were on the news speaking about the incident, the doctor started crying. So God only knows what they saw. And just the emotion, it's just too much. It's too much for everybody. First of all, the people in the shooting, then the people watching it on the news, the students in the windows watching and running, the first responders, the doctors. It's too much trauma all around. But there were 3 fatalities so far, hopefully no more. A young brother by the name of Brian Frazier, a young lady, Alexandria Verner, and then Ariel Anderson. Ariel Anderson is the niece of a friend to us at Until Freedom, and that is reality star Delicious. And, again, 50,000 plus students on a campus. Ariel gets killed. And all these three individuals get killed by this man. And your family has to be saying, why my child? Why my child? But then the answer is, why not your child? Because it could be anybody.
It's just so crazy, man, that you send your kid to college as a Black person. You know what I'm saying? You work hard, whatever you have to do. You want to provide your children with an opportunity to have a better life than you did.
Yeah, man.
Right. And so, just knowing how that, just identifying with that in itself. You know, that you think I done sent my kid to college, she's good, she's in good hands, she's a good person, and you get a call that some psycho person done took this little baby's life, man, these kids' life, and it pains my heart to even think about that. You know, our kids are just not safe anywhere. Nowhere can we go that these babies are safe, man. You know, it's my heart goes out to the family. You know, it really pains me to even just fathom that, man. I don't even know what that looks like. And you know, when we seen Delicious trying to find a young girl,
that
just
was first
alone, that was even worse. The whole world
that
got
broke me.
You know, like trying to find, like, did anybody hear from anybody, and then to find out that she lost her life, man. You know, my condolences goes out to the family.
It's tough. It's really tough. And, you know, I know obviously we would not take away from any one of these people who have been harmed, injured, and those who are deceased. All of them matter. They equally matter. It's terrible, no matter who it is. And we want to make sure that people know that. Ariel hurts because we know her family. You know, obviously we know her aunt. And of course it's for that. But it also hurts. We can't ignore it. We can't not talk about it. It hurts because it was a Black man who went into that school and shot this young Black girl studying to be a pediatrician in her classroom, trying to do the right thing. And we can't act like that does not have a particular sting. It is, he shouldn't have done that, because every time there's a mass shooting, no matter who is the perpetrator of it, I'm hurt, bleeding, can't believe it. It takes me into trauma and depression because it's terrible. And it just so happens that this week we went from the shooting in Michigan State, grieving with our sister Delicious and her family, and of course these other families, and then watching in the same week the Buffalo shooter be sentenced after he shot our elderly people and other family, other Black folks. And by the way, didn't shoot the white man that he pointed his gun towards, right? He did that. And we had to watch those families stand there and address him and try to pour out their hearts about how much it hurt. And he had the audacity to say, I wish I could take it back, but I can't. I wish I didn't do it. It was a terrible thing. And the families is like, are you fucking kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me? And they should have let the man that was trying to charge at him whoop his ass. They should have just gone and just got out the way and let that happen.
Get a little whoop ass, man. Listen, I would have put some money on his books, man. Whoop his ass, and I'd have put some money on the man's books, man.
I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you. There's people like, well, that's not the answer.
That's at least the answer. Man should be able to whoop somebody's ass that takes the life of an innocent person. He at least could get an ass, so that's not the answer. What are you talking about?
Please. It's too much. It's too much. And it was a rough week watching all of that happen in 1 week. And knowing that, you know, it used to be an area that we weren't we weren't victims of, even though, you know, we think about like the Sandy Hook, the young lady from Sandy Hook. It's a young white girl. She was at Sandy Hook as a kid and survived that. And now she's a student at Michigan State. Has now survived this. So even though she may be alive, breathing, physically well, mentally, she never even got over the first trauma, but she was so little. And now here we talk about 20 whatever years later. And now you in college and it happens again. She's never going to be right. And so we grieve. As a society, all of us grieve about Sandy Hook and, you know, Columbine, and the list goes on. It's so many lists, I can't even bring them up. But now our own people are participating in and becoming victims of this. And that goes to show you, which is why we've always said, the gun violence fight is not a fight for one community or one group of people. Nope. Because it happens to us. We see the LGBTQIA community suffering. Just recently, the Asian community, There was a shooting that happened there where people died. This thing is spreading and moving into every community. So when Black folks who we may not have as many people dying at one time in a school or in a building in one place, right? At one point, we didn't have that. But we were saying that mass shootings was 12 people getting shot in Chicago in one night. In Harlem, a shooting that took the lives of 3 people on one summer night. For us, that was mass shootings. And we were saying the world needed to rally together and stand up and fight against it and provide resources and deal with mental health and deal with these issues. Nobody listened to us when we said that. People didn't see it as being it's just thugs and just, and now every community is dealing with its own form of mass shootings and violence that's out of control. And I don't want to live in that world.
It's crazy, right? Because we see how guns are just rampantly affecting like you said, every community. And the fact that there are still people who don't even want background checks on guns, right? Crazy. The fact that they're not even afraid that a gun can get into the hands of a wrong person who would take kids' lives. They don't even want no level of accountability. It's crazy to me. I've seen now that they're proposing to enter a bill where guns will have trackers on. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And things like that make sense to me. Like, it's no way. Because if the gun is not tracked, if you giving people's licenses and all that shit anyway, you're tracking everybody else doing everything else. You can't walk outside without your eyes is being facial recognition and everything. So why not put it on guns that's taking more lives than anything in this world?
That's the place where you should be the most responsible as you've ever been in your life, is when you have a weapon.
Exactly. And people should be held accountable. People should be able to be monitored to have guns. People should have mental health checks. All type of shit need to go into when you're putting a weapon, allowing someone to have a weapon. There should be a level of accountability, a level of research, a level of mental, all these things. We need to be sure that the person that you're giving this gun to is not going to go out there and just shoot people, man. And so I don't know why anybody would keep pushing back on that.
Yeah, I don't even want to talk about the legislative piece, because we always get the prayers and well wishes and everybody is so sad, but they don't move on it. And I believe that I believe in the conspiracy theory that I don't think is a conspiracy. I think it's a theory that there are people in this country that are afraid to put their guns down and to have true gun control, because they want to be able to have access to weapons in the event that they are a part of insurrection type of behavior, right? They have a war plan. And a part of their war plan is their weapons. Every army needs its weapons to be able to fight, right? And they have an army that the NRA, the gun companies and others are a part of. And if there's too many regulations, those regulations also will affect them, because you can't have Black people having to do background checks, Latino people, and then you don't have to do it for white folks. So they need to leave it open. The other part of it is they know as long as they can get access to guns in our hands, we'll do most of the killing against ourselves, unfortunately. So there's a whole war plan. Nothing that is happening in society is just because, what you call it, random. No, it's all very strategic. And we just better know that. We better know that. I was going to talk about something else today. And we're going to be having our guests come on soon. But I'm going to do a whole live on an experience that I recently had with, and I kind of, it's been a month now, or a little less than a month, but I haven't really talked about it. One, because we've been busy and so much is going on, and it was vacation and a lot of things going on. But I want to talk about these apps. Airbnb was the one that I had a particular issue with, but I want to talk about the apps, the Ubers and all these apps, and how now that these apps have been created to provide quicker ways to make reservations, to eat, you know, to get deliveries and all of that, the customer service aspect of it is going away completely, right? There's no customer service being upheld or actually being there's no customer
there's no
service.
mandated. There's no
mandated. But I'm looking for in other words, there's no attempt, no intention at true customer service, because the app is taking the place of human interaction. And the problem with that is that on one side, right, many of these apps, they're making incredible money. Uber is making incredible money, right? All Uber Eats, they got all these things. You have all these different delivery services. Airbnb is making money. And the people who are spending money are not getting the service that they need in terms of the customer service that's necessary so that they have a good experience. And that is something I was on the phone doing something with my remote control and my cable company. And by the time I went through a few prompts, and what they're asking me to do, I already did. I changed the batteries. I did this. I did all of that. I need somebody to get on the phone to hear what it is that I'm going through. And by the time I wasn't able to select any of the things that they only specifically want to talk about, it cut me off. That was it. And that type of behavior is happening in multiple areas. You know, with
I was on the phone
apps.
with Spectrum today, and they was doing the same thing to me. They tell you what you want to talk about. You try to talk to them, and then they say, all right, well, call back later, and just disconnect you. And then you're on the phone for 4 and 5 hours. Last week, I got a fucking boot on my car for registration and they telling me all of these steps to go through. I finally get the steps. I go through all of them, and it's like there is a setup, because they're telling me something wrong with my registration. So by the time I get the registration field, they won't give me the copy of the registration to send. Then they wait 24 hours. And then they know by the time they send you the copy of it to send to them that they can tow your car. So 5 minutes before they sent me the copy of the registration, the people done towed my car. So that's another $150 that you got to go to get you to your car from the tow. Like, this shit is all a game. They have a strategic plan to figure out how to inconvenience you and how to keep getting your money.
Absolutely. So, you know, I want to tell my story about what happened at Airbnb, or with Airbnb, and a particular company that I rented from and stayed in this particular property, this property management space or whatever. But I think that more needs to be, like, I actually want to dedicate 10 minutes of my life, because that's about all I have, every week, to focusing on customer service and how much of it we are losing and the problems that's happening with different companies. And I'm going to solicit friends and other people so that they can tell their stories as well, because I think we're being taken advantage of. And, you know, I don't like to be taken advantage of. I don't mind spending money on a product that I love or a service that I love, because, you know, I believe in luxury. I want everybody to live a luxurious life. And I know I try to do everything. It may not be, you know, I don't know, whoever's life. It ain't Michelle Obama luxury, but it's Tamika Mallory's luxury, the way I can create it for myself. And I want services. I want things to be clean. I want people to be kind. I want things to be done on time. I want there to be a phone number to call, or at least a quick response to things when you're having challenges. I don't think what I'm asking for is something that, first of all, most people are not asking for as well, or desiring. And I also don't think that it's something difficult. I think the problem is that we as a society are allowing this to happen because we want convenience, and we're just frustrated by ourselves. But we actually could organize, we could actually come together and organize so that people start knowing that they can't just do us any kind of way. So I plan to do a full thing on my experience with Airbnb.
Well, you do, because you want it right. You want the stuff right.
Absolutely. So it's time for us wait, I gotta give my thought of the day on that. my thought of the day is never underestimate a woman that has been frustrated by something and then has a plan. Because I promise you that this intention that I plan to put into this particular part of my advocacy is going to move from point A to point B, because I'm not going to stop, because I just am not going to allow people to rob me, people to, just step on me, and not just me. Let me tell you something, Mysonne. To me, yeah, I can fight for myself, but I know there are people out here that are intimidated about writing the email or in the chat to try to get somebody to respond to them, right? Mm-hmm. They don't feel like they're able to articulate the problem, right? The way that you and I may be able to do. There are people out here that are working and don't even have the time. They just need to get somebody on the phone to give them information about whatever they're looking for. There are people out here, elderly people that are being abused and taken advantage of because they don't have the skills necessary to go and get online and fill out a thing and click a thing and wait for a thing and set up an appointment for a time to speak to so-and-so, and then, have the type of situation like the one that I had with Airbnb. So, my thought of the day is, how long will we allow this to happen, and how far are we going to allow it to go before we say, nah, these companies, if we're going to continue to invest in you, you have to make sure you have the necessary things in place to take care of the people that's keeping you in business. So that's my thought of the day.
Well, that's a thought, and that's a word. So in some positive news, I went to do a Black History panel in your church, Grace Baptist
Church, Mount Vernon. Just need to know.
Yes. I did a Black History Day panel with my brother Yusuf Salam and William Wagstaff, the excellent civil rights attorney out there. And we did a beautiful, beautiful conversation. And it was hosted or moderated by Priscilla Etchie, who's always doing a lot of positive things in the community. If you don't know who she is, then you definitely need to tune in with her. The wonderful mayor, Sean Patterson, was there, and I love her to death. And I was honored. They gave me some citations, they gave me some proclamations, and I also got a national day. It's February 13th.
It's not national.
Well, it's national for me. It's my own day in Westchester County. February 13th is Mysonne Lennon Day, man. So I was really honored.
I love that.
Yes, I love it, man. Thanks everybody, who was there. It's my first day. I'm moving on up.
Let me just say, it has to be something prophetic about you getting an award, you receiving a day, the national day. I love it. I don't care. We going with it. It's a national day. National Mount Vernon, New York, that you receive. You got that at my church. And my church is a place that the Spirit of the Lord is in that church. The work that has been done on me and so many lives across the tri-state area, and the work they do, is a social justice ministry. So this church is not a church that is, just on Sundays. It's open 7 days a week. They feed the community. They are marching in protest. They have panels. They have young people active. They have college scholarships. Our church is a 5-star church. My pastor, Dr. W. Franklin Richardson, is my best friend in my heart. And for you to receive that type of honor there, and I didn't even know you were going to be there. You told us afterwards, like, oh, I was at your church. That to me it just means so much, because I know that they wouldn't have given that award to you in that building, and Dr. Howard, the mayor, they wouldn't have gave it to you if they didn't feel like and see the work you do and how hard you really, really go at it every day for our people. So congratulations.
Well, thank you, man. Little old me, man. Shout out to Yusuf and William Wagstaff as well, man. It was a dope day.
Awesome. All right, we got a good guest coming up. We're gonna go back and talk about some Florida issues and what's the struggle for our education supposed to look like? So friends again, we bring our friends.
Always got some friends.
That's right. You know, I bet you people they talk about that. Like, oh, they always have their friends on there.
Yeah, but that's what we supposed to, but that's why we got a show. So we can interview and talk to the people that's our friends that we like. I don't want to interview and talk to people I don't like. Exactly. So that's what it's our show.
You can do that in a different, you don't mind that. You get on your Instagram page and go live and get the fighting and carrying on and talking to people you don't like. On Instagram. I don't have a lot of time in my life available for people I don't like. I need to build with people that's doing something and folks that, you know, we can continue to express ideas. Don't have to be the same idea, but we certainly can, you know, spar with one another in positivity. I ain't trying to argue with people all day on the internet. That's not my thing. Unless it's in the comment section, but that's a whole other thing. But this friend is not just a friend or any friend or the kinds of friends we talk about that, you know, it's a wide group of or a large group of people who we consider to be our friends on Street Politicians. This is actually my friend, my brother, my friend, my dear friend, one of my best friends in the whole wide world. We have been on the battlefield and, you know, spiritually connected for a long time. And, you know, and I think what is really, really what makes me feel sort of like emotional about our friendship, our brotherhood, and my relationship with him and his wife and his family is that they have watched me grow from where I started in the movement a while back when I started coming into my leadership to now. And I have also watched the growth of this family stepping into leadership in Florida. And so today I am so excited to have with us Bishop Rudolph McKissick. And Bishop McKissick is on the board of National Action Network, which is where I met him as a board member. And he also is the senior pastor of Bethel Baptist Church in Jacksonville, Florida, which I just learned in the last few days happens to be the oldest Black church in Florida. Like, this is historical stuff here, my good friend and brother. So Bishop McKissick, I am stumbling over that because I'm just so used to calling him Rudy. Thank you so much for joining us on Street Politicians. Welcome, welcome, and welcome.
What's up, Queen? What's up, King? Call me Rudy, please. Don't be all this Bishop stuff. Don't be doing that on here.
You know how she do.
Yeah, you know, man. You know, she, you know her real well.
Why do y'all, you know, when your friends talk about you, they say things that is not actually being stated, but basically what they're trying to say is that I'm a little off. That's what they're saying, y'all.
A little bit.
Just a little.
So, right. Rudy, Bishop, my brother, we always are in the middle of a fight. Always. There's always a battle happening. And it you know, it hits us in different places. I mean, we've got our other brothers and sisters out here. You got Freddie Haynes, our brother out in Texas. You got Jamal Bryant, our brother who's in Atlanta now, was in Maryland. You know, we've got family in so many different places around the country. We'll get in trouble for naming them all. But in all of these different spaces, we find ourselves having to come together to fight against the powers that be that are trying to oppress our communities, trying to, in some way, disrupt our peace and put us in the midst of struggle. And now we find ourselves in Florida, having to deal with this attack on our education, a whitewashing of our history. They started out around critical race theory around this country and brought it all the way to the real thing they wanted to do was to make sure that in the high schools and some of the younger students would not learn about the history of our people. And you have been one that I saw you immediately. Nope, can't have it, gotta shut it down. You have been telling me for the last year or so that Governor DeSantis was a major problem and that people needed to focus. And now we are seeing just how bad it is. So tell us what exactly is going on in Florida, and then what you all have done something. Yesterday, you guys had, last week, you guys had a big rally. And what is the purpose of that? What's the goals? And, you know, just give us an update as to what's happening.
Yeah, well, first of all, man, I'm glad. Y'all's podcast is dope, like for real. Tamika, I don't even know if I told you that before, but I check it out. And it's really, really dope. So I'm just glad to be on here, chopping it up with y'all. So, Ron DeSantis is doing everything he can to run for president. So everything that he's doing has a bigger agenda to it, right? And what he's doing is real interesting, it's very strategic, and it's slick. For instance, he came out with this whole thing against the AP course. And he tried to claim it was because it had things in there about gays. That's his word. And watch how he got us off focus. So now he's got these Black folk who are ultra conservative religious over here saying, we agree with him because you got the gays in there. And they missing the forest for the trees. Because while we over here arguing that he's right on this issue, he's over here now telling public schools, cover up all the books. I'm making a list of approved books. I'm sending a media specialist in to make sure the books follow my criteria. They took out, while we over here focusing on, what we don't like about gays, using his word again, we missing what he's really doing over here, right? They took out a book on Rosa Parks. They took out a book on Hank Aaron. They took out a book on Roberto Clemente. So he's not, while we're focusing on this AP course and all of that, he's over here trying to change our history, trying to rewrite it. And he claims he doesn't want children to feel uncomfortable. And my thought is maybe they need to be uncomfortable. So, if they're uncomfortable, maybe it'll lead them to join us in the struggle. And maybe they need to be uncomfortable because their comfort is because of how our ancestors were uncomfortable for years. So, he's slick with what he's doing, and he's got us, believe it or not, divided because we fighting over something that we shouldn't even be fighting over, first of all, and as I said in the march on that Wednesday, look, ain't nobody elect you to be pastor. You were elected to be the governor. This ain't church. This is a state. So he's trying to use our state as his test lab to see how we respond. And I said it, to Don Lemon on CNN, we want the country to see that what they got on a micro level in Florida is what they'll get on a bigger level if he's allowed to run for president and become the president. He's vengeful. The latest thing, let me tell y'all what he did. When he got the pushback about the AP course for Black history, he came out that Monday and said, well, I tell you what, we'll just cancel all the AP classes. We won't do anything with the College Board. He always responds like a child, and so he's trying to redact our history. And as I said at the mic that day, the talking point they're using is they're lying, they're dishonest because they say that we don't want Black history. And I'm saying, no, ain't nobody ever say that. What we said is we just not gonna let you tell our story your way.
That's right. Right.
That's not what we gonna do. You don't get to tell our story your way. And even if we go with what he said, I looked it up, only 11 of the 67 counties in Florida are even enforcing Black history. And 95% of those 11 that teach it only do it in February.
Wow.
So it's a lot that he's doing, but he's doing it all to throw red meat to his base so that he can run for president. So we had to march.
And I know that, and I say this every day, but there are so many of us who don't get it, right? And they grab on to, the gaslighting and the talking, those one things. What do you think that was going to be an effective strategy? Because I have Black men every day that come to me with, oh yeah, that's what they're trying to do, this and that. And when you're having these conversations with them, they don't, like you said, they're not looking at the forest from the trees. So what do you think is going to take for our strategies to properly inform and strategize and move our people in the right direction?
Man, I think we've just got to keep talking it. We've got to keep reinforcing it until people hear it. And we've got to peep their strategy, I think, and dissect it. Like, for instance, the whole piece about, the LGBTQIA community. So you got these conservative Christians, Black, who are so distracted by their theology over that they're missing what this is really all about. And that is the disenfranchisement of Blacks, minorities, LGBTQIA, and the rewriting of our history. We've got to just keep dissecting what he's doing, see his game, and call it out to our people. I had a conservative Black preacher come at me, trying to say to me, well, man, how are you agreeing with that? When he's trying to say that it had homosexuality. And I said to him, I said, my brother, let me list to you everything he's done. And by the time I got done, he was like, oh, I didn't look at it that way. Yeah, you're right. I think that's what we've got to keep doing. And then we got to hit them where it hurts, man. I made a comment at the rally. If you don't want our story, you don't want our students. And I threw a hypothetical, and it's kind of catching with some people. What if every D1 athlete went in the transfer portal and decided they were going to go to a school that wants their story? We got to throw some things out there that will get their attention. Because at the end, and I know y'all know this, they don't care about us marching. They could care less, because they know at the end of the day, what we do is march. What we don't do is strategize. So even if a march had them say, all right, come to the table, what you want? Hell, we don't know what to tell them, because we get hyped, but we don't sit down and strategize with each other. And I think that's what we got to start doing.
And some do. Some people, because we make sure that when we are in the midst of protest movements, that we do strategize on what is the larger goal, right? But I get your point that it is not enough of it, and it's not collective, because what happens is that you'll have clergy doing what it is doing, which is important, bringing out folks, trying to have interfaith, because that's one of the great things about the rally. It was diverse. You had a lot of different types of people there. So you'll have clergy doing that. You'll have the activist community doing its own thing, which is also necessary. Then, of course, you have the education community and other elected officials, and we will be sort of splintered. And what strategy looks like is having all of us working together and having a collective focus on, like, what are the pressure points? How do we support one another? And then what is the ultimate end goal? And I think that this is, because to your point, one, let me say, it is not just our history that they don't want us to learn. Right. They don't want their history to be taught.
Right.
Because the history does not belong to just one side. In fact, you don't get from being kings and queens and having our own land and having our own religion, our own culture on another continent, to building America, unless you tell their story too. Right. You have to, right? Yeah. Now he says he doesn't want kids to be uncomfortable. Well, I'm very uncomfortable knowing that my niece, who's in high school, is learning that Christopher Columbus was some type of genius, and that he was some type of hero. I'm uncomfortable with that. Right. When we know that Christopher Columbus was actively engaged in enslaving Africans, right? So it's uncomfortable all around. If you want to make some changes, let's look at the whole history. How can you teach about your queen, Queen Elizabeth, and her, and not tell the story of her lineage, but then you don't want to teach about our queen, Rosa Parks? Like, come on, let's be serious here. And that's to your point. We got to talk straight and make sure we break it down for our people. But to circle back to the LGBTQIA position, first of all, I support I know you do.
I
We
do.
support the LGBTQIA community. And I don't believe that we as Black folks can participate in trying to hold anybody back or block any other community with all that we've been through. I say that all the time. However, when you look at the curriculum was this wide, right. And there is this particular piece that right. is specifically in the area about the current state of the movement. Because you got to look at how the history builds up. They don't have the part about the LGBTQIA community, even in the earlier civil rights movement, where if you want to talk about James Baldwin and all those then at that time who were actually a part of that community, you could start the story there. They didn't.
Right.
It is in this particular time, this context of what's happening in the movement today. You're not telling the true story of the movement if you don't include that, because that's a real thing.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that,
you can't just erase, you know what I'm saying, the story of how this whole thing has progressed. So we got to be smarter than to be in our emotion about how we feel personally about people and issues and whatever. And we have to look at, in fact, the people who created the curriculum would have been doing a disservice not to include pieces of it that exist within the struggle of today.
That's like talking about the family, and because you don't like somebody, you don't say they live in the house.
Yeah.
Then you tell the whole story of the family, and now you just leave the one person out. That's just it's not real. Just because you don't like it or agree with it, none of us might like it, but we can't say that the person don't live there. Right. That's just the reality of the situation. That's what history is. It's telling the true story of what's going on.
Yeah, and for me, we got to stop trying to wrap our activism in our theology. Mm-hmm. Here's what I mean by that. So you've got a theological position over here that is anti-inclusion, right? But this ain't about that. And if this is going to be about activism, and if this is going to be about personhood and being, that can't be your starting point. And that's my argument even to some preachers. That can't be your starting point. We're not arguing about people coming to your church. We're arguing about people having their right as citizen. And, we got to learn how to separate that. And until we do, we're going to forever allow something that shouldn't even be on the table to be on the menu.
That's right. Divisive. It's divisive. It's divisive.
Yeah. But, Tamika, here's the real elephant in the room. My son, here's the real deal. Why we can't come together. Because Negroes always want to get the credit. So the preachers don't get together with the activists because we worrying about credit, or we worrying about who church they don't go to, or are they with the nation, or are they even a believer at all? We putting stuff in the mix that's keeping us from getting together, and we worrying about whose name gonna be on it, especially preachers, whose name's gonna be on it. Who's going to get the credit. And we can't come together for our people because we're more selfish than we are selfless. I mean, let's just keep it real. Let's just keep it 100. Tamika, you and I know this.
Yeah.
Period.
It's really unfortunate that they keep using the same playbook and we keep falling for it every time, man. And the thing is, we so powerful, united. I watch so many different, I'm a fan of just leadership. I'm a fan of power. You know what I'm saying? I see a bunch of men, women, powerful people that I just always be like, why we can't always be together? Why can't we all move as one? And that's the thing that's keeping us separated. And they know that. And every other culture seems to find a way to have their powerful leadership and the people who have the resources come together for one cause. They seem to figure out how to do it. And it blows my mind that as Blacks, we have not been able to do that. It just really blows my mind.
Well, because I agree with you. I agree 100%. But I need to push back for this purpose. We do know when to come together, right? Or we know how, for things that matter to us, right? And even if you think about the way we use our voting power, right? Because without the Black vote, both male and female, both woman and man, because they can say what they want, that Black men don't show up. Black men are number 2 behind Black women in most elections, particularly things that impact us on a federal level, right? We got a lot of work to do locally, because locally it's a disaster everywhere. And that's not just Black men and women, or just Black men, is Black women too, because our turnout rate in local races is down to so low. People don't even have to campaign to be able to get elected. They just show up once or 2 times here or there, and the numbers are going to be so small they could literally win by 2 or 3 people. And so that's a disaster. We have to do way better there, because on a local level, a lot of this stuff is where it begins, right? Governor DeSantis is a local elected official, whether you want to believe it or not, because he's in Florida. And he probably, I don't know his history, but I'm sure he went through steps. He must have been something before he became governor. He just run for governor and become governor. Right. So there's a history. And there are other people in the pipeline that will help him to lay out and carry out his mission, because he's got council members and he's got other, elected offices and people in positions of power who are helping to push his agenda. So locally, we got to do much better. But we do show up and we know how to vote. What we have a problem with is what you are saying, Mysonne, and also Rudy, is this idea of what you do after you voted. That's where we got to come together on that point. Because depending on who the elected official favors, we will either check out, or we start fighting with the person. Oh, so-and-so went to the White House, or so-and-so got invited to this, and they was in the meeting, and my son's talking to the mayor and this and that. Then ain't nothing. They in the system. Instead of us coming up with strategy for, some of us are getting invited to some places. So we got to go in there with the right talking points. Right. If we don't, then you challenge us. Then there are people on the outside pushing as well. And I think that is what we have to focus on more. We know how to move, but we don't know how to maintain and sustain. And I think that's, in Florida, that's going to be critical, right? And a big, what we've learned, and I have to tell you, Rudy, because you've been doing this stuff for a long time, but what we've learned is that the relationship building, the community building, is almost more important than fighting the target. Right? Because when you think about the Breonna Taylor movement, and my son can attest to this, yes, we had our, strategy for Daniel Cameron, and we had our struggle with the city and the police department and all of that. But if we did not invest the type of time that we put into building with that community, we couldn't have done any of what we did.
Yeah. That's where we lack, is in relationships, building community, And one of the things I said to Reb after we finished the march and we went to chill, and I sat next to him, I said, okay, what's next? Cause we gotta come up what our next thing is to move towards our goal. This can't just be the march and we in the media. Because the way the media works now, in 24 hours, they on to the next episode. In the words of, of my boy.
It's in an hour. It's in an hour.
Yeah. It's got to be more than just a news cycle.
Well, because you got a march and the shooting at Michigan State, right, and another shooting that happened after that. So much, even the media, while we have to hold them accountable, even they can't keep up. They don't got enough hours in the day to talk about all the stuff that's happening across this country, not to mention our foreign, the things that's happening from a foreign perspective, right? Right. It's great. People are not even focused on the fights that's happening all across the world that's impacting us here. Inflation is not just because we're trying to recover from COVID. We are also fighting wars and in battles and in situations that's causing goods to rise, causing travel to rise, oil to rise. This is some serious shit. So, sorry, Bishop. It's some serious stuff, Anyway, I know I'm running my mouth, but I just feel like we better be, and I'm not talking about we as in Mr. Johnny, who lives in Jacksonville on a nice street somewhere, because that's too much for him to bear to have to think about all these things. We talking about leaders, people who had the wherewithal, that have engagement and access. We got to think bigger than, oh, there's a part of the curriculum that has something about LGBTQIA. I mean, that's little for us to focus there.
Right. And it's got to be multiple strategies. You know, like you said, there's some people who get to the table. Somebody asked me today, you know, we know the governor heard your comments yesterday. Would you meet with him? And I said, hell yes.
Oh, yeah.
I will go sit right in his face and talk to him. We got to be smart, you know, and we've got to realize it's going to take multiple weapons, if I could use that term, you know, multiple methodologies. Let me use that word. Multiple methodologies for us to affect change that we're trying to affect. And it's got to start, let me tell you, it's got to start in Florida, because there are other governors who are watching what's happening in Florida, ready to replicate in their state what he passes here. So if we don't stop it, and if we don't develop a blueprint so that leaders in these other states, we can say, yo, this is what we did to try to affect this change. We got to think bigger than Florida, you know, and we got to think bigger than just, as you said, the Black community, because he's after any and everybody that's a minority, any and everybody that's not on his side. And we got to come together even beyond Florida. We need all of y'all. You know, I may need Until Freedom to come down here and rock the mic. You know what I mean? Until we get their attention. We've got to get their attention. And I don't believe a march gets their attention.
Absolutely.
Because they know that's
it does. Yeah. It does.
You think so?
I want you.
The attention, it just doesn't, like you said, when you gather hundreds and thousands of people anywhere for one cause, people got to pay attention. Now, it's what you do with that attention, right? It's how you sustain that attention. What you do after that attention is the people that you have and the you know, the demands that you have with that attention that it brings. It's just like watching you guys, the rally you had, it got our attention. Listening to you talk, there's no way listening to how passionate and how thoughtful and how sharp you were, what you were saying, that, like they said, the governor saw what you said. You know what I'm saying? So now they want you, and they're asking you, do you want to sit down with him? Is because you got his attention. You know what I'm saying? So when you sit down, you know what you know exactly what it is that you want. You know what you don't want. You know how to go about it, and you're willing to move and continue to put the pressure on. So I think I understand what you're saying, but I definitely think that it garners attention. You just have to utilize that attention properly.
You do. And listen, 5 people. My son said hundreds of thousands. Yesterday, you guys had over 1,000. 5 people can make a difference by coming together, because unity at any level causes people to notice, to pay attention, and to have to listen. But to your point is how you push that forward is going to be what makes them stay in tune. So right now they looking to see, was it a march and it's over? This is what you said.
Right.
Or is there going to be other steps and other things happening that keeps this movement alive? And that's what we have to do. I mean, Until Freedom just announced our 6-week course on African-American studies. And, you know, we're focusing on teaching with instructors. I'm not teaching, I'm actually learning. We're focusing on learning from early, before enslavement, to the transatlantic slave trade, through the reparations movement, and looking at when that actually started, because it wasn't just recent history. Reparations is something that started the conversations about it while enslavement was actually happening. Because as our brother, attorney Angelo Pinto says, it's about repairing the harm. So there's always been a conversation on that. And then we're going to be into in late March, talking about the US Constitution and how it intersects, you know, us as African Americans, where we see ourselves within the Constitution. And then finally, the movement that is happening today. So that's another part of our resistance struggle, is educating ourselves and making sure that if they try to ban it, we still have it available somewhere to teach it and to learn it. But there still has to be boots on the ground. So I appreciate what you all did yesterday. I do not want you, because you're like me. We have this thing where even though we did one thing, it's not enough. We need to do 10, we need to do 15. Right. We want to do it strong. And that's just the way that we are. But you have to sit back and realize, prior to you all deciding to do something, nothing was happening.
That's right.
Facts. Yeah, no, that's facts.
The clergy community was talking about it, knew something needed to happen, but you all were bold enough to call it, and people came.
Yeah, no, they came in law. I mean, it blew my mind. Man, clergy came from as far as Miami, South Carolina. You know, they really came together. And as you said earlier, it was so diverse, you know, Black, white, students, the LGBTQIA community. I mean, you name it. It was a representation of the very thing DeSantis is against: inclusion and diversity. You know, and it's really weird because I said it at the rally. He ain't a Native American, which means the very fact he is the governor is because diversity worked.
Right.
So how you gonna cut out the very thing that helped you become the governor? But that's what white folk do. They use the rules for themselves and then try to flip the script when we learn the game.
Well,
that's a whole lot of game right there.
That's a whole lot of game, bro.
Yes, sir. Well, we appreciate you for joining us. We want to do this regularly as we're into this fight to keep people abreast of what's going on. We need to be on one another's lives, be in communication, because that's what most people, it's not that they don't want change. It's not that they're not trying to fight. It's that it takes a lot of work. It's hard. It keeps you up every day, every night. You got to stay committed. You got to be invested. And once you start something, you can't just drop it in the middle. You got to see that thing all the way through. And that is what really becomes the biggest struggle that most people have, is that they don't know which way to turn. But we always say, just keep moving. So that's what we have to do, is just keep moving. What's happening in Florida is happening across this country, y'all. We cannot sit by. We cannot sit by. If they are allowed to teach their history, then we need to be allowed to ensure that ours is being taught as well. You cannot say, well, we don't need them to teach they have access to our children all day long.
Right.
And what they put into their minds and hearts, and to their own children all day long, it does matter. And yes, we should teach our own, but we should also force them to have to tell the stories and confront the true history, theirs and ours as well. So thank you, Bishop McKissick.
My son, I got to come so we're going to leave Tamika home, but I got to come to New York so we can hang out.
Listen, man, look, you ain't said nothing but a word, man.
We're going to leave her home, though.
Home for me means my bed, so I'm all good.
Can't wait. That's all she want to do.
Love you, man.
Love you. Peace, y'all.
Too, man. Peace. Rudy dropping them jewels, man.
He takes seriously, like, when he's doing something. So he's like, we got to be united. We got to do this. One march ain't nothing, but we have to always remind ourselves to stop and acknowledge what we're able to accomplish, you know? And
I mean, that's the thing. That's the thing, especially in this work, you know. You feel like you're taking 2 steps forwards and 5 steps backwards, man. You save a life and you lose 2. You get some rights, they take 3, 4 from you. So it always feels like that. But you know, I guess those of us who've been called to do this work, man, that's just the cross we got to bear, man. So shout out to Rudy, shout out to everybody who crazy enough.
The entire coalition of people that got together in Florida last week, but more to come.
Yep, definitely, man. So that brings me a little off topic
It's always a little off.
It's always a little off topic. But so you know, it's been on the news. This fan lady, whoever she was, she reached and grabbed Busta Rhymes' butt. And he responded by throwing water on her. And you know, and there were people who was acting like he did something wrong. I seen somebody saying, oh, he shouldn't have did this and he should have did that. And he could have done anything, right? He could have been caught. He could have been kind. He could have been kind. He could have threw the water bottle at the lady, right? He could have had his security or somebody grab her, physically done something, because that's assault. If a woman was walking by and a man reached in and grabbed her ass, he would get the beat down of all beat downs. The security would beat him down.
Maybe.
Listen, I mean, if a celebrity woman was walking by and a fan, and she had her peoples alongside her, her security and her friends, and he grabs her butt, the possibility of him not getting physically assaulted and harmed is very small. If I'm walking with a female, a woman that I don't even, if I'm walking next to a woman and the nigga grab her butt, the possibility that he ain't getting his ass whooped is probably zero, right? So I don't understand why, I don't get why people were mad at him just throwing water at her, right? He could have pressed charges. He could have done anything. You know what I'm saying?
Well, the response I saw from her was that she just wanted to take a picture.
But you can't grab nobody's ass to take a picture.
Yeah, because the question is, was you trying to take a picture with his ass? Like, which part?
Put your hand on his ass. A picture would be like, hey, can I take a picture, Buster? Not reaching in, it's grabbing his butt and smiling like you think you did something good.
You know, and Buster, we know him. Buster is not trying to have a fight or nothing with nobody. He ain't trying. He's focused and serious about what he's trying to do. He might not be chitty chatty and playful or whatever, but at the same time, this is not somebody that's out here trying to fight women. That's not a thing. So let's not even start that, because, you know, they'll be like, oh, and maybe, you know, they'll pull up something that happened 10 years ago and be like, see, this is the kind of thing. That is not the situation here. You cannot be touching people on their person. You can't. I don't even understand why it's so much touching and people getting close to you and bumping you and talking in your face and this and that.
People feel like they're supposed to be able to touch you.
I deal with it all the time.
Like, people walk up to me and they be in my personal space. Dude walked up to me the other day and asked me, did Jadakiss answer his DMs? I'm like, I don't. Why would I? You gotta ask Jadakiss. I'm not in Jadakiss. He was in my face. He had a couple of drinks. You know what I'm saying? You can tell he was a little drunk and he was mad. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, and I'm good at that because I understand. I come from, you know, the streets, so I know how to disarm those situations and not engage and turn them into more. But I think a lot of people feel like, you know, that they are inclined, that you're inclined to do something for them, or they're inclined to be in your personal space, and you're inclined to do certain things for them.
I was out a few nights ago in a loud place. Loud. And this beautiful woman came over to me and started showing me pictures of her loved ones, two twins that were shot and something happened. And to your point, I'm like the man that wants to know about Jadakiss's DMs. I done had a few drinks. I've been hanging out. I'm with my friends. Everybody's having a good time. And this beautiful lady, because she was beautiful. She was a beautiful woman. And she was sweet. And she said she loved me and said such positive things to me. However, she wanted at 2:00 in the morning on a night that I'm hanging out to tell me a full story about what happened with the kids, the phone number. Can she call the sister, yelling over the music and trying to explain to me. Now, I've been in those situations several times because people, when they see you and they need to try to explain to you what's going on, they don't know if they're going to have a chance to talk to you again. So I get it. I'm used to it. I deal with it all the time. But the part that I was trying to understand and express to her without being rude is that she's talking to me directly in my face to where her air is coming, and I'm trying to turn my head and telling her, talk in my ear so we're not passing germs back and forth. And then when I turn my face, she's coming over here. And I'm like, people are not even conscious of like, we don't even have a
more personal space,
a way of like protecting ourselves and like not being in people's personal space.
Yeah, it ain't no more of that. People don't care about personal. Nah, those days is gone. Your personal is no more personal space. People think that, especially if you are known, you have some level of notoriety, fame, people feel as if they're supposed to just be able to engage you and you're supposed to be happy. You're supposed to have full conversations with them and you're supposed to touch you and hug you and all types of stuff. And sometimes
I'd be about to die because I'm holding my breath the whole time, standing up, so that I don't breathe any of it in, and I go to try to hold my breath. Like I'm gonna die.
So what's funny about this? You actually do shit like that. People think that you joking and you just saying it for a joke.
Oh, I'm dead serious. What?
Yo, she's dead serious. You hold up breath. You gotta see her. If somebody she like that, and you gotta see her.
I actually have a cold this week. I have a cold. So I don't want to even give you
people from you.
Yeah. And
help you.
When the air is moving across my face, bruh, nah, we can't do it. Anyway.
Tamika don't want you in her space. She don't want to breathe your air. She gonna hold her breath. Please give people some personal space, man. Buster, man, we know your heart, man. Lady got a couple drops of water, man. You know, she'll learn next. She learned today. Back up off people. Don't be touching no man's buttocks, especially no Jamaican man. You can't touch no Jamaican man's buttocks.
So, do you know for sure that she touched his butt?
That's what he said. They said he touched his butt. Like
I just want to make sure that.
But you had to see it because when you look, you could see there was nowhere else she could have touched. She reached down
and went for his butt.
And he turned around, started, because it's not like somebody touched his back or anything. If he would have felt somebody touch his back, he felt.
Now you can't do that. You can't do it. Period.
And
the water was a reaction.
Yeah, it was just like.
I bet you it was a reaction.
It was like, whoop. Don't touch a man's buttocks.
Boundaries.
Leave the man buttocks alone. You don't touch the man buttocks. Yeah. Shout out to Boom Boom, Save the Brand. You know what I'm saying? Support the kids, man.
The young people. That's Bronx Logo's son.
Yeah,
so
brand, baby. We outside.
Logo has the Bronx logo.
You know what I'm saying? We got Save the Brand and Bronx Logo, man. Find the hip hop, save your truck over there in the Bronx, man. It's all through the Bronx, man. Keep doing what you do, man. So with that said, thank you for another beautiful episode of Street Politicians. Thank y'all for supporting us, making us the #1 podcast in the world. We truly appreciate that. You know, give us all of your feedback. Street Politicians Pod on Instagram. Let us know what you love. Let us know what you hate. Tell us anything you want. Give us some topics. Tell us some people you want us to interview. We want to hear all of the feedback. We love y'all. Thank y'all for supporting us. Please continue to support us because we're going to do what we do. I'm not going to always be right. Tamika D. Mary's not going to always be wrong, but we will both always, and I mean always, be authentic.
Peace.
Listen to Street Politicians on the Black Effect Network on iHeartRadio.
And catch us every single Wednesday for the video version of Street Politicians on iWomen.tv.